All right, cool. So thank you so much for joining us, Dani. I'm so excited about speaking with you and learning about your class and everything that you do. So, um, yeah, we know each other for a couple of years, and I find your career so inspiring, right? Because you're helping people grow on their professional paths, and you're also like a savvy businesswoman. So, can you tell us, like, how did you go from having a degree in law to organizing international events, right? To starting a company, a publishing company. It's a lot of different things. So maybe you can tell us how you went from, one decision, like making steps to make all these creative businesses.
Flo, muchas gracias.
Flo, thank you so much.
Primero quiero decirte que estoy
First
feliz
of
de
all,
poder
I just
estar
want to say that I'm very
platicando
happy to be
contigo
able to
y
be
contigo
talking
poder
to you
presentar
today
todo esto
and
porque
with
eres
you
la
to be able
persona
to present this
ideal
because
para
I know
poder
you're
canalizar
the
esta
ideal
energía en
person
alguien.
to channel
Y
all of this
bueno, si me
cool
preguntas
energy.
cómo he
And
pasado de
so
una
I guess
cosa
if you
a
ask
otra,
me how I've gone from
creo
one thing to the
que con
next,
fe.
I think with
La
faith,
fe siempre ha
because faith
sido una
has
inspiración en
always
montones de mi
been an
vida, siempre la fe.
inspiration and a
No
motor in
digo
my
que todo
life. It's
tengo que
always
hago
been
para que
faith.
suceda,
And so
sino
I'm
más
not
bien
saying
me
that I
despierto
put
todos los días con
faith
fe y
in
digo,
everything to do what I do.
¿cuál es
It's
el
more
plan
like I
para
just
hoy?
wake up in the
Y
morning and I say, okay,
entonces
creator, so what's the plan for
simplemente me he
today?
dejado guiar
And I
todo
think
este
I've
tiempo. Ha
let
sido
myself be
bastante
guided by
divertido,
the creator throughout
no
this whole
siempre,
time.
pero
It's
incluso
been
cuando no ha
very
sido
fun,
divertido,
not
siempre he
always, but
encontrado
even when
la
it
energía
hasn't
para
been
seguir
fun,
haciéndolo.
I've found a
Así
way to
que
keep
sí,
going.
soy abogada de
So
profesión,
I am a lawyer as my
conductora de
profession. I'm
espectáculos y
an event
eventos
producer
grandes por
and
vocación,
massive events
pero
because of a
ThetaHealer por
passion,
misión,
but really theta
porque
healing
la
because of a
misión
mission.
siempre hace que todo
And that
funcione
mission
y este tiempo de
always
enero en
makes things
específico con
work. And I think
ThetaHealing ha
with this
sido
divine
muy
timing,
interesante
specifically with
porque
theta
también me ha
healing, has
permitido
been very
expandir
interesting. It's
muchas de
allowed
las
me
cosas
to
que
expand
conocía
many of the
antes.
things that I
Siento que
already
todo
knew
lo que he
before.
conocido
I think
antes
that
era como
everything
un
that I've
grounding,
known
era
before getting to
como
theta
algo que
healing,
ya
it
ahora
was
está
like
pasando
a
conmigo y
grounding,
ya
like a
puedo soltar las
preparation, like
cosas
the
para que
creator
entonces cuando llegue ese
showing me
día
how to handle
de
certain
ThetaHealing
things so that when this
yo ya
divine
tuviera
timing of theta
esas
healing
herramientas
came
para
around,
poderlas
that I
aplicar
would have
y
those
compartir con
those
mi comunidad.
tools to be able to share with
Estoy
my
muy
community.
feliz.
So I'm very happy.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, do you want to tell us a little bit about like when you started to discover theta healing, like how did it affect you and maybe people who don't know what that is, right?
Sí,
Yes,
realmente eso es muy interesante porque
that's really
fíjate,
interesting
yo no
because,
sé si yo tuviera un
I don't
álbum donde
know.
yo
I think if I
pudiera
had like an
mencionar
album where I
mis
could collect
profesiones
like
y
my
mis pasiones,
professions
diferentes
or
actividades
my
que he hecho en mi
hobbies and
vida,
different activities that
creo
I've
que
done throughout
tendría
my
yo
life,
bastantes
I think that I
cartitas
would have quite a
que me han
few
llevado
little collector cards in that
eh,
album by
y
now.
realmente jamás me
And
imaginé estar
I never
haciendo
really thought that I
esto
would be doing
8 horas
what I
todos los
do
días a la
now,
semana,
24
pero
hours, a day, 7 days a week, which
dedicados
is
y
being
felices
connected
de
to the
verdaderamente
creator
poder
and
hacerlo
teaching other
y platicar
passionately about how
con
to
más
do this
gente.
and just to
He
be
tenido todo tipo
amazed
de
with everything that
trabajos
happens. And I've
y he
had
estado por ahí
many
donde
jobs and
yo
professions.
empecé a
I'm
trabajar
41 years old and I started
informalmente
working
cuando tenía
informally
6 años.
when I was 6 years old.
Cuando tenía 6 años
And when I was
con un
6 years
tío.
old, my
O
father
sea,
passed away. And so
yo escuchaba que estaba pasando
I could
ahí
hear
algunas
that there
cosas
were different
económicamente
things
en la casa,
happening
así que dije,
financially at
necesitamos una
home. And so
solución.
I said, well, I need a
Así que
solution.
salía
We need a
y
solution. And so I would go out on
daba
my
vuelta
bike
al lugar
and
donde
I
vivía
would go around the
y
block where
bajaba
I
de la
was living.
manzana
And on the other
había un
side of the
pequeño
street,
súper.
there was a little
Y entonces
supermarket.
yo daba la
And
vuelta
so I would
al
go
lugar,
around, I'd get
sacaba
down
algunas
off my little
cosas
bike and I would
y
put
en
things in
México, cuando
bags for
querías tener varias
people.
cosas, te
And
daban
so in
propina.
Mexico, when
Te
you
daban una
put things
propina.
in bags for people, they
Yo
give you a
tiraba
little
las
tip.
cosas,
I would
saludaba a
get
mi
my
mamá,
tips.
decía que
I would
estaba
go
bien
back around
y
another
seguía
turn to say hello to my mom and then go back to the
y
supermarket.
realmente yo
So
estaba
my mom thought that I was actually just playing and I was just on my bike, but I
viviendo
was
muy
actually
tranquila.
having my first
Terminó muy
informal
curioso
job.
porque mi mamá se dio cuenta que
And
estaba trabajando
that was over quickly because then my
se le
mother
acabó
realized that I was
el
working.
trabajo y un día
She
se
didn't know
fue
I was so
y
popular at
se dio
work.
cuenta
And then
que
one day
podía
she just
comprar
went
los
with me and
trabajos
she
que se
realized that I was
necesitaban y
quite well known at
pues
work when people would say hello to me.
tuviste
So
que
that's my first
literal, tuve que
sad work experience that I had to stop doing that. That was my first job, but I've worked in so many different things, Flo. I love music. When I was a teenager, I was in a pop group. So I would sing, I would dance, I was on TV, I was a TV host, a radio host. I would do some commercials, TV commercials. And then I was a DJ a little farther ahead. And now at 41, I realized that the creator was just kind of training me so that today I can even know about frequencies. And now when we're in DNA 4 with Theta Healing, when we're talking about music and frequencies and how healing all of that is, it's something that really helped me. So in that sense, like with music, I started to work a lot at nightclubs, at different nightclubs all over the city, these fun places. But since I was 18 until I was like 24, more or less. And so I was in charge of public relations. And so my job was to make sure that those places were full, right? That there were always a lot of people. I would make sure I was like the leader of more PRs and that we would make sure that many of the places in the city were full. We would dance, we would have fun, we would be there with our friends. But at some moment, I really didn't like that anymore because there wasn't just music, at these nightclubs, there were a lot of other things happening. And I remember saying, at the same time I was studying law, that was like in 2009, 2010, I was studying law and I was already an event producer. I already started to do events. And I remember I said, with these like exact words, I just said, God, please, if you could get me like a job that is just as fun, that I do just as well financially, that I can meet a lot of people, that I can meet a lot of friends and have the same fun or even more than what I do now, without there being vices in certain things in this, please give me this. And you know that the creator's always listening, And so it was kind of like, okay. And then I got sick. And I didn't know how to ask for things very specifically. I just kind of put that out in the universe, and the creator said, okay, so how are we going to do this? Because I asked for that, but at the same time, I was working a lot. And it's not that I guess I like to work that much. I've just always found jobs that are very fun. So I would like to go to work or to my job. And so I kept working and then I got ill. Very badly. I almost for like an entire year, I was very sick, and kind of a very pessimistic doctor told me that I only had 4 months left to live. And I said, what am I going to do in 4 months? That's very little time. I started to get depressed. I stopped working. And kind of summing up that story a little bit. And at that moment, when this like divine moment kind of came in, where I started to learn how to meditate, how to ask the creator for what I really wanted in a very assertive way, and how to be able to find the beliefs that I needed to be able to live a healthy life. And a few months later, I was completely healthy, and I had been diagnosed finally after quite a while, because I know I'm quite analytical, and first you need like a diagnosis to then be able to heal it, right? And so I had rheumatoid arthritis, and that made my immune system attack my own body. And so my blood cells, my red blood cells were very low. I was like at 7 and they kept going lower. And so I learned how to meditate and how to be able to go within me to find the answers, and to be able to go up and to just be able to get answers and start creating. And so I saw Theta Healing in 2011. And a few years later with Tasha, in some way, I'm not even exactly sure how, because if you ask me exactly how it happened, we were able to meet Vienna Steibel, and I never really thought that we would work with her. I mean, I admired her mission, her technique, her way of being. And I've worked with a lot of writers, authors, and best-selling authors, and very, famous celebrities or speakers from all over the world. But being able to work with Vienna has been very inspiring, because she's taught me how to be like this really spiritual being experiencing this human life. So I met her in 2011, 2012, and 2015 or 16, I don't even remember exactly, but we started to be her event coordinators, Tasha and I, in Mexico. And I think it was that same year that we started to translate also like all of the material, the manuals, everything. For some reason, there wasn't very much in Spanish and it wasn't in our language. And so Tasha and I started to do just that job with our community. That was something important, just to be able to understand what we were all learning, because we have the classes, but we didn't have the material. And so in 2016, I believe, 2017, we became the publishing company for all of the ThetaHealing books. And, you know, we were very happy. And honestly, we didn't know how to do exactly the publishing company. I mean, we'd already done many events with, I don't know, 40,000 people in a stadium, but we had never printed a book. And so that was one of those moments also where the creator just guided us and was like, okay, this is this divine timing. This is what we're going to do, and let's go. So we really learned how to be able to do all of the editing behind the book, the translation, the process, you know, and just being able to work with different publishing companies and people that could even see the graphics, the printing, to make sure it was a good quality. We learned 1,000 different things. And so I think we've done it pretty well. But the secret, I guess, of having so many hobbies and passions or jobs at the same time is always having the creator as your business partner, because if you can have the creator as your business partner, you're already on the other side, guiding you, investing in yourself, and you're also trusting in those investments that the creator is giving you, and to guide you along the path, making things happen. So faith, I think faith is always the path, being able to work with paths, thinking with faith and living this faith.
Yeah, thank you. I love it. Also, one time I attended one of the manifesting webinar that you were sharing, and even the way you speak now, it feels the same kind of like down to earth way to experience manifestation. It's not like, oh, I'm going in this direction. Let me feel the thing. Let me decide on what it is. It feels like for you, it's so much about being. The manifesting is simply being the thing, and I could see how it's more like a means to an end. Like, you know, each manifestation is just it kind of flows because it's like you're trusting the creator. So it's so cool to hear you speak. And I love also that what you're saying about, you know, I feel like a lot of theta healers, they're very agile with their mind, very curious and very fast. So a lot of us, we don't, it's not like we get bored, but it makes sense to me, like all these different aspects of who you are. Like, it's so exciting. Um, yeah, like, you know, because you have handled like really big projects and things like that. You know, sometimes I translate Vienna for the French, and I was like, do you have any advice on how to bring community together, or maybe trusting the timing and when people kind of like who like resonate with you, they're coming together. Just because we're having your class translating in French, and you know, just some hints of wisdom for the French people who are teachers and practitioners of theta healing.
Mira,
So,
la verdad es que no soy muy sabia,
the truth is I'm not that
pero me
wise,
gusta
but
tratar de
I do
divertirme
like
mientras
to
soy.
try to have fun while I'm on this journey. And I think that the best advice that I could give is the way that you're saying it. You know, manifestation shouldn't be suffering. You know, manifestation should be something that you feel, that you experience, that you love. And within that experience, you keep learning while you're manifesting. And if you're doing it from this space, you're going to have a lot of fun in the process and be able to learn a lot in the process. And of course, manifest in abundance. So, what advice? You know, Tasha and I, there's something that we always say. You just worry about the what and the creator is going to handle the how.
decir que pienses en el qué,
So
sino
it
en lo que
doesn't
quieres
mean
que
that,
sea
you know, you
igual.
just think about the what you want and then you just sit there on the couch, you know, waiting and seeing if the manifestation is coming in. But you do say, just simply, you know, creator, this is what I need. This is what I want in my life. But especially, I already have all of this right now. And so the creator is also going to figure out a way how to bring that into your life, because on this third plane that we're living in, the only reality that exists is the one that we're creating. So you're creating your own reality. I'm creating my own reality. And if we can enjoy our reality, knowing that we are co-creators of this reality, it's much more fun, because that way we don't have anyone else to blame or anyone else to look at when something isn't going exactly how we would like it to go, or who to ask for advice. We have the creator as our ally, and as we're walking along our path, if something isn't going exactly the way we like, we're always the owners of our steps. And so we can move our steps and we can take action from this space. And there's a new class now, actually. Well, now I guess the newest class is Manifesting Part 2, but the one before that is DNA 4 Part 4. And for me, it's something that has kind of taken me back onto that path of focus, because it's one of those classes that are very simple, but are very powerful to be able to bring you back on that path where you're destined to be. So just handle the what and allow the creator to bring in the how. And so just focus on what really matters. You know, sometimes we get distracted, or we don't focus on the things that, you know, that, or we think that we should be doing, you know, and just focus on being, you know, on who you are. And when we can focus on the being, then everything else starts to come together. And like they say, you know, this famous, it's being, you know, it's doing and having. So if I'm a happy woman, then I do what a happy woman feels when she's happy. And sometimes we look for it the other way around. You know, sometimes we want to have something to then be happy, you know, or to do something to then be happy, instead of focusing first on who do I want to be, and then we start walking and taking steps. So I think that one of the biggest tips that I can always give to everyone, you know, and not just my Theta Healing colleagues, but my niece, you know, or anyone, it's that just to be able to focus on what you truly want. And once you actually know what you want, knowing that the creator is handling how it's going to come into your life. And there's also something that I say, if you can think about it, it's because you are ready to create it. There are a lot of people that say, you know, I want to manifest this trip, or I want to have this house, I want to study this, you know, I would like to do a podcast, whatever it is, you know. And then they say, but I don't know, am I enough to do that? You know, am I going to be able to? Am I really ready to be able to do that? And I think all of those things, when you get that inspiration, when you get this energy of something that you desire, because it's not really a want, it's a desire, you know, it's something that comes from the inside. And it's like a tip that the creator is giving you about something that you're ready to manifest in your life. So if you can take that little tip from the creator and you like that inspiration, that tip the creator is giving you, then you're already halfway there, because you already accepted in that tip that inspiration. And so from there, then you say, yes, I like this, I want it. And on top of it, I would love for it to be with all of these things. And you start to dress that manifestation. And then it can be just amazing how everything can start coming together. Because, you know, if the creator's giving you that tip, it's because you are ready to create it. It's part of your divine timing. And if you can have fun in that divine timing, then one of the promises is that the creator is always going to give you everything you need to manifest that divine timing, that divine path. And it can be fun. But if you're getting bored while you're manifesting, I always say the person that gets bored is boring. So change your energy, shift it up, you know, to an energy that you can enjoy what you're manifesting. And if you're still not enjoying it, then you need to go inside again, you know, and see if that's still part of that path that's getting you excited, or if there's something new creating and it's starting to move that energy.
Yeah, I really love it. I love it, like that it's a tip from the creator, and yeah, staying in this energy of joy. Cool. Thank you so much for that. I feel like I'm getting a healing session for myself. It really speaks directly to me. So, yeah, it was nice because when we were in Hawaii, it was impressive because you were the class example, and it's true, like you were dealing with the passing of your mom. And so, how is it for you? Like, I know that you have this class now, right? Finding your light in grief, and so how was the experience for you to going through that healing for yourself, and then kind of discovering that you had something to offer, and preparing the class, and inventing the exercises, channeling, discussing with Vaina, like this would be interesting to get to know, right? Thank you.
Es realmente
You know,
muy
it's
divertido.
really very fun
Porque
because
yo sabía que había una clase elective.
you know, I knew
Porque
that
siempre me ha
I was going to
gustado
do an
avanzar.
elective class.
Soy
I always
una
like to
mujer
move
que me gusta
forward.
siempre
You know, I
avanzar,
am a
crear,
woman that likes to create and move forward and build, build a community, build relationships, build new paths. And if there's not a path, then let's build it, let's open it. And if we need this, then let's go and let's do it. And so since I took my basic practitioner class, when my teacher was explaining that there were these elective classes, that when I think I came around, there was only one or two at that moment. And I thought, wow, that's very cool. But I never really thought about doing an elective because as a producer, that part of my life, I think I felt like that was kind of over, being in front of the camera or being on the microphone or dancing or singing. And when I, like got to that essence of being a producer with logistics and doing analysis and producing and creating, I love it because it's like building up this castle so that everyone that's invited to that castle can have an experience, and it can be wonderful. So creating experiences for people, it's something that I'm very passionate about. I love it. But I never imagined really about creating this elective class. And if you know me, or if you're seeing this video and you know me, you know that I'm usually very private, but at the same time, I'm very extroverted. I'm not really someone that would like put their picture on the flyers, or I would say my name in the mic, if they would say, Dani, come, and introduce yourself, I would say, oh yeah, I'm going, I'm just going to make sure the sound is working. And I would go to the backstage, and so for many years, I think I worked a little bit on that. And I would say, I don't need to have the spotlight. I don't need that. And I would always say, sometimes to be like the main character, you don't always need to be out there in front. I mean, I do like to be the main character, but from behind the scenes to create that experience for everyone. And so I never thought about this elective class specifically. Actually, whenever I did think about an elective class, it was for a completely different subject that I wanted to present. But God always has a plan, right? So I think it was just part of the plan. In 2022, my mother got ill, and it was something that none of us were expecting. It was like from one moment to the other, the diagnosis, and my life changed completely. As soon as I knew the diagnosis, everything that I knew as my life or the world as I knew it, it changed it completely. And so it was 8 months of palliative care where every day I would say goodbye to my mother. And on one hand, it was the worst day of my life because I knew she was going to die, and I know that not everyone has that fortune. It's something precious that I had, to have the fortune of knowing that she was going to die and to prepare myself for those 8 months every day until the day that she said goodbye. But if we think about it, really, since the day that we're born, we know the only thing we know for sure is that we're going to die, right? I mean, so it's kind of interesting, funny, because we all say, oh no, a surprise, she died, but it's not a surprise. I mean, we know that we're all going to die at some moment. And so I think that God has a sense of humor that's incredible. I love God's humor, or the Creator's humor. I mean, my father died when I was 6, so I already knew people died. I had already gone through loss of friends, family members, people that I loved very much. But my mother, that was like my biggest fear. And so my biggest fear is to be able, to lose my mother since I was little. And my mother died on Christmas weekend in 2022 because I said God has a sense of humor, right? And so this is a good time. Let's, now would be good. And so that happened. And, I thought that it was going to be the worst day in my entire life, humanly, emotionally. And of course, I can say, yes, it's been the worst day of my life. But everything that my mother's death gave me, all of the gifts that I've been able to discover and to open up and that I've been living throughout time, it's also been something beautiful. And 8 months, I don't know, 200 and how many days is that? 240 days that I'm everything but a mathematician, okay, in case the math isn't correct. But 240 days because, it was since April 26th until December 26th. And so those, 240 days that I would say, this is horrible, it's torture, saying goodbye every day. The day that I actually said goodbye, I said, wow, I had 240 opportunities of how to do that, of how to live each one of those days. And how I lived each one of those days, it taught me so many things. I enjoyed her, she enjoyed me in a way that maybe we hadn't done that for years. And so what gave me grief afterwards, it was also something magical. And, 2 months later, we were in Hawaii in that class, and we were taking DNA 4. And Vaiana did. She asked me to come up to be the example, and I wasn't expecting it. And I ended up crying in front of everyone in the example. But I think that was my first breaking moment after my mother's death. I hadn't cried so much until that day. And a lot of things started to come together. And I started to see a lot of new things. And the next months, grief has many stages. And one stage isn't like the other, and there's not a specific time. You start living through them in a different way. But if you can actually use those moments, it's also something very brave to be able to face and to be able to enjoy it too. Because while I was doing and going through all of this, I had my phone always, and I was always writing things down. And when I would get messages, I would write them down. And I started doing Theta Healing because when I healed in 2011, in those months when they had said I was going to die, I also met a lot of people that were dying, that were very sick, very ill at the hospital, at the doctor's appointments. And so when I healed, I said, I need to know what happened, because I need to be able to help these people that I met so that they can heal too. And so since 2011, I witnessed a lot of healings, but something that was a big breakthrough for me, or more like a breaking point, was not being able to heal my mother. And that, as a healer, is a very strong moment because as a healer, I've witnessed many healings. I'd been already a Theta healer for more than 11 years, and I'd witnessed so many different healings along the way. People with diseases, people that had terminal diseases, but I wasn't able in that moment to be able to see a healing in my mother, or I thought that I wasn't able to see a healing in her because even though I did all kinds of things, I wasn't doing it. And so I learned a lot about free will and how healings come in different packages. And that's also something beautiful. So I realized that yes, I was able to see a healing in my mother. For 8 months, every day, I was witnessing a healing. And even the day that she died, the day that she just evolved, I was also able to witness one more healing in her here. And so I was able to witness that divine evolution that she had. And in all the time, throughout all those moments, I was writing down, and I'm pretty good with dreams, and I like to work a lot, of course, but sometimes when I'm sleeping, I feel like, well, we shouldn't, just let that time go by. And so sometimes, in dreams, I receive a lot of information, and I was like, yes, that's important. And I would wake up and I would write things down. Or I would work on things on myself too. And I thought, wow, I think that I could work on this with some of my clients, or I can work on this with someone else. And so I would write that down. And so just like in 2011, when I did everything I needed to do to know Theta Healing and be able to share it with others, in 2022, 2023, it was the same thing. It was about healing with myself. And once I realized that those things were working, I said, I need to write all of this down and be able to share it with others. Or I would do a healing, and then I would go with Tasha and I would say, wow, today I learned this and this. And so I would write it down. And at some point, I realized that I wrote a lot of things down. There was a lot, and I kind of put more order to them, organized them in a manual. And so it's like a 50-page manual, and one page isn't like the other, but just kind of, it takes you in an evolution also. And it's been like a divine inspiration. I just see it as a gift to be able to receive all of this. And what I can say is that, I realized that it wasn't just the Creator preparing me for that moment. My mother had also prepared me for that moment many years before, just educating me as a person with faith. And she also helped me a lot with metaphysical things, with dreams. She taught me also so many things in different areas. Then in that moment of transition, I saw how I could use all of these different tools that she herself had given me so that we could even keep communicating. And I'm going to, tell you more about this in the class. I don't want to spoil it too much, but, like a couple of weeks before she passed away, I had just told her, I said, Mom, promise me in one of our next lives, we're going to meet each other and we're going to choose to be sisters in the next one, because it would be very cool for us to be sisters. It would be fun. It would be amazing. And she looked at me and she was like, didn't you like me as a mother? And I said, yes, you did good as a mother too. But wouldn't it be cool to be sisters? We could have these sister fights and it'd be fine. We could have fun and have a party together and learn together and travel together, and it would be fun. And she said, all right, it sounds good. One of the next lives, I'll look for you and we'll be sisters. And so really, I don't know exactly when we'll find each other again in that physical way, and we'll experience that life as sisters, but I know it's in the future in one of those lives. But it's all of these kinds of conversations that she was preparing me. And today I can know, that I can communicate with her in a very fun way, in a very nice way. And I can find that light in grief, because there's no possibility that someone can go through grief if there wasn't a lot of love before. There needs to be a profound sense of love and context of love, so that in that goodbye, we can stay with this gift of grief. And so those next months, really, my grief was quite connected, of course, with highs and lows, and which is normal in grief. But at the moment when I started to see all of this information and to put the manual together, I realized that the secret is to be able to enjoy those parts of grief and to be able to find that light in grief. Because if you can find that light in grief, your path through this is going to be illuminated. And so this manual, when I presented it to Vianna, really, Vianna's always very open, and she always opens up like the space for everyone. And so I think that Vianna received it with a lot of love and understanding, because Vianna also went through grief. The same year that my mother died in 2022, her father died, and then her mother died. And she'd also lost her doggie, Jasmine, her beautiful puppy that we all knew as well. And so she had also gone through different forms of loss. And so I think that Vianna definitely, I think she could see all of the love that was in that manual. But besides all of the love that was in that manual, it was like this need for people, because it's a need, to be able to find this light in grief, and for people to be able to know how. And as a Theta Healing practitioner, I think that it's not just, about taking the class if you lost someone, because in the groups now, I've had people that they haven't gone through a loss in their life, but that they have found a lot of light in the class. And that's even, more amazing, because I think that really like the back end, this undercurrent of the class is, yes, finding light in grief, but really it's about finding purpose in life. And so it's really being able to talk about life, about how amazing each opportunity is that we have, how to be able to enjoy your life, have happy, like conscious happiness, like being able to live and knowing how to have conscious happiness. So more than a class for people that have lost someone, it's an elective class that's open to all theta healers that already have dig deeper, and that they're just willing to be able to enjoy life, learn more about life, and start to live from a different perspective, because we all know we're going to die, and that moment is going to come for everyone. And so being able to build that, not just for it to come as a surprise, but knowing that the day that that moment comes, we have all of these things that we've built around this moment to be able to feel proud when that moment of transcendence comes. So I feel sometimes that people, they see the title, the name of the class, it's like finding light in grief. And it's like, we're going to talk about grief, and we're going to cry, and we're going to talk about death. Ooh, how scary, right? And so sometimes we're a little superstitious, but really the truth is that of course we're going to talk about death, but so that you're not afraid of it. And mostly we're going to talk about life. And I kind of feel like the class is finding light in happiness, because that's what we talk about a large part of the class. And I know that you understand me completely, Flo. You like to have a good sense of humor and to laugh and to enjoy life. And so it's really a class where, they ask me, am I going to cry? And I say, well, yes, there can be moments of tears, and of course there can be that space. But I can assure you that those tears are going to be tears of joy, of love, of gratitude, of enjoyment, of happiness. And so you're going to have these tears, but of pureness from your soul. And so one thing that I can assure you that you're going to have during the weekend or the days that you take your class is a lot of joy, a lot of happiness. Because grief, when you're finding that light, there's a lot of happiness when you find that. So you're going to be able to experience happiness in a very spiritual way, and also like a new purpose for your life, and to build beautiful things from there. And I know my answer is very long.
Yeah, I love it. I one of the things that I found was fun is that how essentially you're connecting with your mom is you're making a new vow for the next life. And then it made me think, at some point I was doing a session many years ago, and I was getting the download for the person that love is eternal. So your love for your mom is so deep, and it's so exciting to see. Um, so then also when I did the translation from the testimonials, I could feel the lightness. And then I know you too. So then I know it's filled with lightness. But when you were speaking, I was thinking about, that the birth is a Kundalini opening. And in a way, I don't know how you're going to introduce it in this class, but this transcendence of people is also a Kundalini for those who stay, or for those, I don't know, I will learn, when I'm in the class. So I'm really excited to find that wisdom, so that I'm better prepared to help people, and also for ourselves, right? One of the things that I found interesting is, like you were saying, April 26th, right? The diagnosis. So, and true, you knew about the fact that it was going to come at some point. And do you have, I don't know if it's some downloads or some thoughts about, it could be like people who have a medical diagnosis. I feel like it's such a shock. I know that I used to work with people who have Alzheimer's disease, and there's this kind of like depression that comes and stuff. So like recognizing that we're mortal. I know that for me, I was pretty young. I'm and one tooth was healed, and they killed my tooth, and it was my first, introduction to my mortality. So I don't know, when we get difficult news, what do you think is the best thing to do? Practical things to make it easier on us.
Sí, eso es algo
Yes, I
importante.
think that's
Ahora,
something that's very
voy a
important.
regresarme
Now,
así 2
I'm gonna go
segundos.
back like just
Solo
2
eso que
seconds
dices, si yo estaba
about what
haciendo
you were
esto con mi
saying, you know,
mamá,
like doing these vows with my mom kind of, you know, it's kind of like when you go to a coffee with your friends and you laugh until your stomach hurts, you have an amazing time, 5 hours with your friends talking, and then you tell, we have to see each other again. We have to meet up again. This was awesome. We're going to see each other. Let's plan for the next one because I had an amazing time with you. So, yes, of course, you know, I think it's amazing to know that we can always come back to those people that we love, not just in a physical way, because I also want to say that in the future, when we create that life, my sister and I, if she misbehaves, because you know that everything that has been created can be discreated. So
Yeah.
I'm sure that we're going to have to handle it in the future, but it is something beautiful to know that we can meet people over and over again, that we do have this possibility of coming together. It's never a true goodbye. You can say goodbye in this human life, in this time. You know, maybe you said goodbye a while ago to a friend and you never saw him again, and he was just a friend, but you kind of cut that connection and you didn't even realize that that was the last time you were going to be together and enjoying. But knowing that there's always the possibility of a new moment to come together, that's what really makes us multidimensional with all of our facets, and that really makes us know that time is divine and that how we can use it. So knowing that there's always a moment where we can meet each other again is amazing. Now, I remember that date. It's so specific because it was a day after my birthday. And so we were together that last birthday that my mother gave me as a gift. It was beautiful. We were together as a family, all of us enjoying. And I didn't even know that she had pain because she didn't manifest it. She would just laugh and she was happy. And it wasn't until the next day that we knew. So the same thing as Christmas. She honored Christmas. She said, okay, I'm done. I gave enough. The star is leaving and I'll see you in the future. Bye. But Christmas is over. And so she also said goodbye in a very, very nice way, a very beautiful way. But you know that diagnosis is also important. There are a lot of people that go through these diagnoses. You know, I had a diagnosis in 2010. You know, they said you have 4 months left. And I didn't know what to do with that. You know, I was 20 something, you know, 20 years old, and I had a lot of life ahead of me. And I got very sad. I didn't want to tell anyone else. I didn't want anyone else to feel sad. I kind of carried that disease on my own, and I didn't know Theta Healing yet. And so it wasn't until the moment that I shared about this with someone and this person helped me heal it. But really, you know, I would have loved for someone to come and to say, wait, you know, staying or going, it's up to you. It's your free will, and you can decide when that's going to happen. So all of these new beginnings or all of these new opportunities, we have them every single day. So, you know, every day, Flo, when we go to sleep, we wake up and that's already a miracle. And we wake up one person being one person and we go to sleep being a completely different person. And that is already a miracle. But if we're not consciously aware of those miracles we're having every single day, then how can we feel grateful? So also in this class, you know, of finding light in grief, we talk about this miracle, the opportunity we have of how to enjoy it. And I would, you know, love that if this video, you know, is being seen by someone who has a diagnosis right now or a terminal, you know, or any diagnosis that makes your heart feel bad or your thoughts feel bad or your soul, you know, to know that it's also a choice. Every second in our day can also be a new choice. You know, every minute has 60 seconds. So in 1 minute, we have 60 different opportunities of choosing differently. And so if we're really standing with a purpose and we move forward from that purpose, our choices are going to be positive and they're also going to help us move forward. But if we stop like in the darkness or in the victim energy or in thinking of what feels heavy, then it's kind of like we're tying ourselves to that heaviness and it's going to be a little harder to flow. So I would love to do some downloads for this, if I have the space to do this, you know, but if right now, if you're going through a difficult moment, through a diagnosis, do I have permission to download the Creator's definition of what faith feels like? And that you know what it is and what it feels like to walk in faith, and that you have the Creator's definition of what it feels like to be guided, that you know you're being guided every second by the Creator. And also, can I download the Creator's definition of free will? And that you know how to use your free will, and that you know how to choose every second in your life, and that you can enjoy every second in your life, and that you know that you can choose the way that you would like to create every second without fear, without having guilt, knowing that you're always backed up by the Creator and you're always helped by the Creator. And can I download the Creator's definition of gratitude? And I just want you to think, you know, for a moment while you're receiving these downloads, just think about something that you're already grateful for, something that the Creator has already done for you. And think of all of the time that you've spent in this life, and think about at least 2 big things that the Creator has already done in your life. And if the Creator was able to do that already in your life, then the Creator will be able to do anything for you. So do I have permission to download the Creator's definition of a miracle, that you know what a miracle feels like, and that you know how to enjoy miracles every second, every moment in your life in a positive way? And that you know how to witness miracles and to enjoy those miracles and to be able to co-create miracles. And do I have permission to download that you know what it feels like to be a co-creator of your life from the Creator's definition? And if you would like these downloads, just say yes. And you can open your eyes whenever you're ready, but you know, that's what it's really about. It's about making a choice, because in that way, you know, that my mother had her time quite clear. But, you know, in those 8 months, she had like 3 different surgeries that she could have left, you know. They actually first gave her 1 month, you know. They said, don't do anything, take her home. She's going to start to fall asleep little by little, you know. And we started to create new paths together. And she decided out of free will to stay 8 months and not 1 month. And she did it against all diagnosis, against everything that they thought, you know, to stand up and walk again, to brush her teeth. And it was like with this energy of a little girl full of love saying, look, I can brush my teeth now. And she had like a broken you know, elbow. And so she had like delirium and she fell off her bed and they weren't operating on her. And she said, no, this is too dangerous. You know, I could die if I get that surgery, and I don't want to die from, you know, an elbow surgery. It has to be something more cool. And so, you know, she would just say, look, I can brush my teeth now. And so she would brush her teeth and we were like, yay, good job, you know, and we would be all excited for her until there was a moment where she said, okay, I'm good. And we left her alone for 3 hours. And those 3 hours, she was sleeping and then she just stopped breathing. And so she'd already left instructions about what she wanted to happen in that moment. And so we respected that. And so her death was beautiful. Her evolution was also beautiful. And so it is this new beginning. And when we come here, we have a new beginning. And every stage in our life, we have a new beginning. And so every second you can create this new beginning with your free will, because it's up to you what you want to choose in this second. You can choose to be mad. And if you're going to be mad, then get mad really good. You know, you can't do things halfway. If you're going to get mad, get mad. But then the next second, you can also choose to be happy, but be happy, good happy, you know, I mean, do it well if you're going to do it. So with your free will, you can choose to be healthy. You can choose to love. You can choose to heal. You can choose to laugh. You can choose to do whatever it is you want to do, because if you can think it and it comes into your mind, it's because you're ready to create it.
Thank you so much for all your wisdom. Yeah, I'm very inspired, not just because what you say makes so much sense to me and it touches my heart, but it also like you know, I could see how your life is like you've been so much walking the talk. And I can understand, you know, living in New York, like the difference between producing, being there for others, and then being creative and speaking and sharing the wisdom. And yeah, it's very exciting to see you kind of like go in that direction. And I feel like you have so much to teach people. And a lot of healers, you know, and creative people, they don't have the kind of like grounding with their business decisions and down to earth. And so I think, you know, I look forward to seeing what you do moving forward, because it's going to be a beautiful path. And I'm happy that you spoke today with us, and to know you, because I'm so proud of, you know, everything that you're creating.
Muchas gracias a ti, Flo. Gracias
Thank
por el
you.
espacio. Gracias por el
Thank you so
espacio.
much, Flo, for the space, for all of this love. And I knew that you were the exact person that we needed to ask those questions, to be able to organize all of this. And I'm going to be very happy to have you also within the team in this class of Finding Light in Grief, and to be able to share together again. I mean, we've already had a lot of fun together before, and it's always beautiful to be able to see each other again and to do something together. And I'm gonna love having you there and being there.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Yay.
you.